I get the privilege of introducing our next speaker, my colleague, Tiara Neal. Tiara is the founding executive director of the Bexa Equity Alliance. She's a living example of the rising incidence of breast cancer in young women of color and the challenges that they face in accessing quality early breast cancer detection. Prior to joining Bexa, Tiara was a successful media executive, and she was developing film and television content for major networks and production companies, and she's been instrumental in forging this partnership and establishing a network that helps to provide low-cost or free exams to women who are uninsured, underinsured, under-resourced of all ages. She is the primary point of contact in working closely with the Laura W. Bush Institute for Women's Health as we establish this new program, Access to Breast Health for Texans. So please welcome Tiara Neal.
Thank you, Dr. Mo. And thank you, Mrs. Laura Bush, Connie Tyne, and everyone at the Laura W. Bush Institute for Women's Health. It is truly an honor to be partnered with such an impactful organization like the Laura W. Bush Institute for Women's Health to be able to serve the underserved women of West Texas in our phenomenal joint initiative, Access to Breast Health for Texans. I have to share with you, when I was gearing up to fly here from South Florida, I had a moment with my son. I travel all the time for work, but something was really special about when I left my son 2 nights ago. And I hugged him extra tight. I kissed him one too many times, and he's now 11, so he's at the age where he's like, Mom, enough. Too many kisses, Mom, I'm too cool for that. Well, it was in that moment that I started reflecting on the fact that there was a moment in my life where I did not know if I was going to be able to hug my son and kiss my son in his 11 years of living. And I started thinking about all of the women who don't get the opportunity to raise their children and what that feels like when they're diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer, and knowing that there's an opportunity for them to not be able to raise their children. And so I get to celebrate this month 5 years of being cancer-free. Thank you. Early detection saved my life. When I was 33 years old, I was diagnosed with stage 1 invasive ductal carcinoma. And prior to being diagnosed, I was still living in Los Angeles, California, and I was a TV producer. I produced television for BET, TLC, Discovery. You might know the show 90 Day Fiancé. I did work on that and some of those other fun shows that we all love to binge watch and kind of just forget about the world. Well, during that moment, when I was watching a cut, I realized that I was not fulfilled, and this was my dream. My dream was to be a TV producer. And I hit that point where I said, I think there's a bigger purpose for my life. And I didn't know what it was, and I will tell you, be careful what you pray for. Because I had gone to my gynecologist in Santa Monica, California in August of 2018. And for the first time ever, I had asked her for a clinical breast exam. The women's intuition, we all know, is never wrong. And she turned me down. She told me that she had too many women. She was an hour and a half behind. She had women who were getting ready to have babies that needed her attention more than mine. And it was in that moment that I felt really discouraged. I had Cadillac insurance. I was a woman of color. I knew that had I maybe looked a little different, that I would have gotten just those extra couple of minutes for her to say, I can give you that breast exam that you requested. Well, 6 months later, I relocated to Washington, D.C., where I'm from, and I was laying in bed with my fiance. And those of you who have children, you'll know that when you're pregnant, it's probably in the first trimester, it feels like needles are shooting through your breast. Well, I knew I wasn't pregnant, and I'm laying there, and I'm like, gosh, something is going on with my right breast. It felt like those needles, and I was like, I know I'm not pregnant. Well, started massaging the right side of my breast, and I felt what felt like a little pebble, and it was rock solid, very small, but very hard. And it was very concerning, but at the same time, no family history, the youngest of 5, older sister, healthy as can be mom who, I mean, she's 74 going on 24. And I was encouraged by my family. They said, you know what, just go get it, see what your gynecologist says. And I said, remember, I just moved from LA back to the DC area and I don't have a doctor. Well, I reached out to one of my really good friends who was actually doing social media for what's called the Foxhall Group in Washington, D.C., which is probably the #1 healthcare group for women. And I was able to get in within about a week, which I was really grateful for because I needed that peace of mind. I knew at the time it was probably nothing because, again, no family history, 33 years old, healthy as can be. I was, the one who was always like, let's do a juice cleanse. Let's go for a hike. Let's go run 10 miles. Everyone's always like, oh, here she goes, Miss Healthy over here. I was grateful to have gotten in with the gynecologist. And she said to me, Tiara, you're so young. You're so healthy. It's probably nothing. But just to be safe, I am going to send you on for a mammogram and an ultrasound, which I am forever grateful for her for doing that because quite frankly, I don't know had I had a different type of referral to a different doctor, if she would have just dismissed me and said I was young and had no family history. But because I got a little extra care and attention, I was sent on for an ultrasound and a mammogram. Well, I asked her, I said, Doc, how quickly should I get in? And she said, no rush, at your leisure. You just moved here, it's Christmas time, spend time with your family. Well, me being who I am, I'm an Aries, so I'm a fire sign, so I'm like, let's get this done right away. I was able to get in for my mammogram and ultrasound a month later. That was the soonest available. So I had to sit with myself for a month during the holidays and wondering, what is this little pebble that's living in my right breast? Well, I go in for the mammogram and the ultrasound, and they tell me, the radiologist reads it. She's like, you're either supposed to be in the black area or the white area. You're in the gray area. So sorry, we have no answers for you. But again, you're young, you're healthy, you have no family history. It's probably nothing. Well, fast forward, I asked them, okay, well, what are my next steps? Okay, we're going to send you on to see a breast surgeon. Okay, when can I get in? Another month. The waiting period. I finally get in with the breast surgeon, and she immediately just starts talking about what my surgery is going to look like. She's like, you're going to have a surgical biopsy. I suggest, since you work full time, that we schedule this on a Friday so you have time to recover over the weekend, and then you'll be back at work on Monday. And I'm looking at her like she has 12 heads. Again, no family history. So I'm like, hold on, what's a surgical biopsy? No one told me anything about this. Anesthesia, I had my son, a 9-pound baby, absolutely no drugs, not even an Advil. I had him vaginally. And so I was the person that's like, anesthesia? Wait, hold on, this is too much. I had her sit with me for 35 minutes. I refused to let her leave that room until I fully understood what that surgery entailed. And I demanded to understand, because now you're cutting me open. You're putting me through surgery. And I really have no understanding, no education as to what this really looks like. So I left there feeling still discouraged, but at the same time, her response was, again, you have no family history, you're healthy, it's probably nothing, but we're gonna give you this surgical biopsy just to give you the peace of mind that you deserve. Well, I couldn't get in for surgery for another month and a half, and that was the first available because I had no family history, so they had to put everyone else ahead of me. Well, I finally go in for my surgical biopsy, and she comes out, she tells my family, it looks good, it's small, we got rid of it, I'm not concerned at all. Well, me being the worker bee that I am, my post-op was scheduled at the same time as this all-hands meeting that I had for the television company that I was working for. And the president at the time said, nobody can miss this meeting. So what do? I canceled my post-op, and I asked to be rescheduled. And they said, well, we don't have any other appointments. And I said, well, can you just call me back when you can find an appointment? They never called me back. Wednesday rolls around. Mind you, I had just moved from LA, so I had just switched offices from the LA office to the Maryland office, and I was just getting to know my colleagues in person and really getting to enjoy them. So it was the first time I was going to lunch with a couple of my colleagues, and we're heading out the door, and I get the call, it's my doctor, and I'm like, oh, hold on, just give me literally 1 minute. She tells me, are you alone? She asked me, are you alone? I said, no. And she's like, well, I need you to go be by yourself. And I'm like, okay, well, she's probably just going to say, I need you to do X, Y, and Z moving forward and make sure you're just checking your breast. The first thing she says to me as I go and sit in a phone booth is, you're going to be just as surprised as I was. Great way to address me. You have breast cancer, and I really have no answers for you as of right now. And I'm gonna have to get you into genetics testing, and we're gonna have to do, we're gonna have to talk about what your next steps are, chemo, radiation, bilateral mastectomy. And I heard none of that. I started thinking to myself, who's gonna raise my son? And then I told myself, no. This is not a battle for me. This is beyond my belief, and I went into denial. I could not believe I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And all I could think about was my son. And there was just nobody on this planet that could raise my son the way I could, because he is truly the biggest blessing in my life. So I had my moment. I realized that my fight was going to be long and it was going to be hard, but what I wasn't going to do was leave this earth and allow anyone else to raise my baby boy. So what I ended up doing was I did get my genetics testing. I did not have the BRCA1 or the BRCA2, but I do have what is called the ATM variant. But again, I was advised that that is not the cause of my breast cancer, because there's not enough significance to prove that that's the cause of my cancer, because truly there's not enough data and research on women of color and the genetic mutations and variants in which we have and carry. But it was enough for me to say, let's cut my breast off. Let's go forward with the bilateral mastectomy. I don't care how many surgeries I have to have. I want to survive, and I want to live a long, long life. Fast forward, I had an oncologist say, oh gosh, all you young women deciding to get, these bilateral mastectomies, and you have so many years ahead of you. And I looked at her and I said, ma'am, doctor, you just told me I have a long life to live, so why would I look up in 5 to 10 years and I have a reoccurrence and it's metastasized in my body, and now I'm fighting for my life? I am absolutely going to get a bilateral mastectomy, because I'm gonna get rid of that option of potentially having it come back and have a reoccurrence. And it was in that moment that I knew I took control of who I am, my body, and ensuring that I was going to live a long life and raise my son, who is now 11 years old. So very grateful about that. Fast forward, during my cancer journey, I was connected to the CEO, Dr. Joe Peterson, and I joined him as an advisor, as a woman of color, and understanding the health disparities that lie in the understanding that women of color need access to an additional modality, and they need access to early detection, because they and we are still dying at a 41% higher rate than our counterpart, and that needle has not moved in years. But that is why the Bexa Equity Alliance, our 501c3, has been formed. The Bexa Equity Alliance was formed, I'd say about a little less than 2 years ago, and I applaud the CEO, Dr. Joe Peterson, for being extremely thoughtful and ensuring that the Bexa Equity Alliance was formed because he realized that we have to address the crisis. Dr. Mo had mentioned, women of color and women from underserved communities are twice as likely to die from breast cancer. Well, actually, here in Texas, breast cancer is the second leading cancer cause of death in women in Texas. So we have to address the crisis here in Texas, and we need to do it now. And that's why it's such an honor to be able to partner with the Laura W. Bush Institute to provide access to breast health for Texans. And we're really excited about the work we're going to be doing. Our mission is simple: no woman left behind. As the nonprofit arm to Bexa, we ensure that we provide access to early detection breast exams for all women. We believe that every woman deserves access to life-serving care. Together with our partners and allies, we provide accurate, convenient, painless, and radiation-free Bexa breast exams at no cost to the women who are most in need. We've already made such a huge impact, and we're just getting started, and that's the exciting part of this. We've done over 600 free breast exams to date in less than a year and a half. Just this past month alone, and Dr. Mo had mentioned the Bahamas, we did 100 breast exams in Grand Bahama and Freeport, Grand Bahama. And we are addressing a major crisis in the Caribbean, and I'm honored to be able to lead this division in ensuring that not only the women in the US, but globally, we are reaching the women, again, who are most in need. We've impacted over 1,200 families, and thus far, we've reached 15 communities and states, and we're, again, just getting started. Access to Breast Health for Texans, our wonderful joint initiative with the Laura W. Bush Institute. Our goal is simple. We are going to make a statewide impact while starting with West Texas. We're going to provide access to breast health for Texans. We will target underserved women in the communities in which the Laura W. Bush Institute has its core service areas, West Texas. We will work with local churches, communities, and organizations to be able to provide these exams at no cost to the women who are uninsured and underserved. It's a first of its kind joint initiative for Texas, and that's what makes this so iconic. Our goal is to impact the health of 10,000 plus women each year. And if you take a look at that one pager that's in front of you, you'll see that our goal is to raise $1 million to impact the health of 10,000 plus underserved Texas women. I just wanted to highlight how important and how impactful and how honored we are to be partnered with Hendrick Health to be able to provide the women who do need further diagnostic testing and navigation services at no cost to these women. It is just such an honor to be partnered with Hendrick Health, so I just wanted to share that. These are some of our partners to date: Touch the Black Breast Cancer Alliance, For the Love of My Girls, Touch for Life, Know Your Lemons, Say Pink Productions, Survive Her, GirlCon, the Laura W. Bush Institute for Women's Health, Soul to Soul Sisters, National Minority Quality Forum, Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship Church, and HHM Health, which are both right here in Dallas. This is our fabulous board of directors. You might see a familiar face or two up there. Our co-chair, Dr. Gary, Crystal Peterson, Iris Peterson, Baker Harrell, and Kathy C.A. Help the BEA transform. Alone, we can go places. Together, we can go much further to make an even greater impact. Will you join us in saving women's lives to ensure no woman is left behind? We, the BEA, are putting health equity into action. It's time. Thank you.